Once again, thank you for joining me. My name is Douglas Grummons, and today we're going to have the continued reading, I would say, of Songs of the Buddhas, Chapter 2, Part 3. We left off talking about the seven stages and the river the river of spirituality that we have to pass through. We pass through it, the river, while we're alive, but then again, we face it again when we're dead. One way or the other, you're not getting away from facing this river. So the encouragement is to do it now while you have this chance, while you're alive, because we don't know what's going to happen, really when we die, if we have that chance again. So I encourage you to dive into my words and get an understanding of what we're trying to convey, or what I'm trying to convey to you. Before we get into the reading, though, I wanted to share something. I recently watched a documentary on Netflix about the guru that I admire so much. His name is Osho, and I read a lot of his works. Before his named Osho, he was named Rajneesh, and he got a bad name as being called Rajneesh. Because of what happened in Oregon. They started a commune up in Oregon, and it got misrun, and things got a little awry. I mean, I don't really think it was Osho's fault that things went awry. He wasn't, really controlling things minutely. He was letting his secretaries do that. And, it was a good documentary to watch because the documentary is unbiased. It shows both sides of what went on in Oregon, from the government side and also from the inside, from some highly respected sannyasins of Osho's. But yeah, the townspeople did not like the Osho people, the Rajneeshi people. They were scared of them. I mean, and with good right, because they, borderline on some craziness going on, but that was Osho's way to bring out the craziness in people, and then to cure that craziness and for once and all, and finally to get rid of whatever crazies are still inside of you, and then you're able to be able to meditate peacefully and soundfully, and move on to the higher stages of evolvement of your soul. But anyway, the documentary is very insightful, very touching, a little scary to watch. But through all of it, I still read Osho's works. I used to practice their meditations, and I used to teach those meditations. And they are very helpful, and very in depth. And in each meditation helps you in a different way, and that was the beauty of what Osho's work was about, was to complete your soul, no matter which path you're on, whether you're on the path of greed and ambition, or power and lust, or whatever, whatever evil was destroying you, Osho could help you to overcome those issues and have a better insight into what you have to face to become enlightened. So without further ado, we will bring on me, Douglas Grummons, and I will get back into the reading of Songs of the Buddhas, Part 3, Chapter 2. Okay, so I left off talking about the sixth stage of life. And before I get into the reading, the sixth stage of life, I'm more or less referring to your ages and the age groups, and the age groups, and they coincide with what level of spirituality. If everything went right in your life, if you met a Buddha and you meditated and you expanded your horizons, then the sixth stage should have been. The sixth stage of life occurs in your late 30s and early 40s, from 36 to around 42. But those are just rough numbers. It varies from person to person, and depending on how well you developed in the lower stages of your involvement. But anyway, back to the text. I say, and I'll pick up and I'll overlap a little bit from the last video in case you didn't hear it. But the sixth stage of life has unfortunately been reached only by a handful of individuals. I feel the numbers are greater than history has recorded, though. Our history was kept by the wrong people, the scribes. They wrote our history as they believed it happened. And then the translations were also changed when languages were translated. And there have been thousands who have made it to the sixth stage since the time of Buddha, but only a handful of them have ever been recorded. The sixth stage was meant to give the seeker time to grow. It is one thing to become enlightened. It is another thing to help another person get to the point where that experience can happen to them. Buddha remained silent for 7 days after his enlightenment because he could not put into words what had happened to him. Even though an enlightened person no longer lives in time, time is needed. Devices are used to help describe what occurs in the peak experience of enlightenment. At the most, we can point in the right direction. It is like bringing a horse to water. If the horse does not know he's thirsty, he will not drink. If he knows he's thirsty, he will drink. Except with enlightenment, the horse has never drunk the water. The fifth and sixth stages give the seeker time to grow into a tree, time to fully experience the rays of sunlight that we call enlightenment. The lessons learned in this stage are not all roses. Remember that all growth is painful to some extent. So while your spirit is growing, pay extra attention to your surroundings. Everything happening could be a lesson in time or a lesson of some form or the other. Stepping out of the text a little bit, in a way, I'm giving people who are enlightened a direction in which to help others to become enlightened and to one day flower themselves. But so this book is an insight into what it means to be enlightened, and then what to do with your enlightenment once you're enlightened. If you care to help others along the path, then this is a good tool to expedite that. So anyway, every lesson learned will help you to help others along their way. It is arduous, and some people will think that you're a little crazy, talking about things that cannot be seen. When a surfboard shaper first learns to shape surfboards, he learns all the basics from a master shaper. He knows all the formulas and angles needed to shape a board. But the beginner, the rookie shaper, must shape at least 500 boards before he even starts to understand the magical numbers that are needed to make a surfboard work. Someone has to buy those 500 surfboards so he can afford to keep shaping. And those boards will surf, but they will not respond to the needs of a real surfer. Or in other words, they're going to be inferior boards for the inexperienced riders. But it won't matter at that point. In reality, it can take over 5,000 boards before a shaper can really make a superior board. If it is hard to give someone something that can be touched and used physically, imagine how hard it can be to describe something so delicate it cannot be seen or touched. In reality, it cannot even be given. Priests have been doing everything they could to possibly do, and the gift is never given to them. Buddha tried in every possible way to receive the gift for over 6 years, and nothing was given. And then one evening he surrendered all his knowledge. He said, "I give up," and went into meditation with no expectations under the Bodhi tree. He just closed his eyes and let go. And then the miracle happened. Buddha realized at the most he could work on people from the outside. Buddha realized he needed to create devices to break the shell of the mind, or as he called it, the ego. He could hammer on the shell of the ego from the outside, but he also knew the baby soul inside the shell had to be developed and be ready to break from the shell and break apart the shell from the inside. Only then will the gift be given. So it is work on both sides, a gift from outside and a readiness from the seeker from the inside. Remember, this from the seeker. So remember this, the shell protected you for many years, but your spirit will not mature if it stays inside the shell forever. So I say we were not designed to live in this shell forever or for our whole lives. And when we give into to blind faith, we are not even made aware about the existence of the shell. So what do? Who to listen to? Listen to existence? Listen to the cry of those birds on the wing calling you from your nest? Listening to anyone you wish, but only listen with awareness and an open heart. Blind faith can be good for children as a nest. It is good for a chick. The nest was not made for you to live your whole life in, though. So exercise your wings, grow in the nest, and when you feel ready to take flight, you can return to the nest, and rest. But one must experience the feeling of flight. One more thing. Would you trust the bird in the nest that has never taken flight? There are many who claim they have taken flight, but look closely. Be aware of their muscles. If they have no muscle tone, then they have never taken flight. They may have studied every aspect of flight. They can memorize every written word about flight, and quote them on a moment's notice. Still, they dare not fly. They might be chickens calling themselves hawks, who knows? And how will you know? Just be aware. Do not be afraid to grow and exercise your wings. So when the day comes, you can say, screw it, spread your wings, and then just fly into the soaring sky. And that, I'll step out of the text for a minute. I just want to share one thing that the very first time I went skydiving, it was the most nerve-wracking experience in my life. You know, getting up to altitude and climbing out of the plane with a brand new parachute on my back that I'd never done before, and a few instructions on how to get to the ground safely. But you just can't describe the feeling, when you're holding on to the outside of the plane and your body's hanging out of it, and you give your instructors a count and say 1, 2, 3, and then you release from the door. But it's the same kind of release that I'm talking about, diving into meditation, and the same time of release about learning to fly yourselves. That this feeling of ecstasy, this feeling of bliss, can only come when you take the plunge. Okay, back to the text. I'd like to also encourage you to keep your religion. There's no need to switch back and forth between religions. And Jesus is just as good a teacher as Buddha or Lao Tzu or any other. What I suggest is bringing meditation and awareness into your religion. Also bring love and prayer into your religion if it lacks it. The key to God's kingdom is wholeness. And if you have a connection with God, then keep it and strengthen it. If prayer is your way, I'm stepping out of the text, but if prayer is your way of your connection with God, go into that prayer, but let that prayer lead you into meditation. Because with prayer, there needs to be two. You and God are separate, and you're praying to something. But in meditation, it's one. It's a oneness, and there's no need to pray to, because you and God merge together and you become one. And eventually, I know it sounds almost anti-religious, but it's not. The deepest mystics that have ever gone, like Buddha and Osho and Mahavira and others, they say that the step beyond meditation is you don't even meditate anymore. You are God's bliss. You are God's essence. You're really a shell of what you used to be. Gautama Buddha was a married man with a baby child. When he became enlightened. But when he became enlightened, they changed his name to Gautama Buddha. It used to be Siddhartha, but then he changed it to Buddha. But anyway, back to the text. The sixth stage of life is in line with the sixth chakra, the third eye chakra. And the four pillars are strong, and now your temple has a strong base. The feeling of I am has been transcended, but the feeling of the self can still exist. In the sixth stage, the feeling of the self begins to disappear. And when the third eye opens up, you'll be able to see energy in all forms. Energy flowing into you and energy flowing out as well. And once you experience this, the feeling of the self disappears. At this point, you have God's eyes and God's ears. And I want to also say, before we jump in the seventh stage, that the visualizations that come to you when your third eye is open and you're living out of the sixth chakra of life are so intense. After I've meditated, like in a dark room, if I can, without the lights on, energy just falls on everything in darkness, like little speckles of diamonds and little speckles of light. And it kind of looks like the Matrix grid off the movie The Matrix, where everything was green and coated with shiny light, but it's just pure white energy. And you experience the visual, you get to visually experience what's going on to you, and in the sixth chakra, which is also the 10th dimension of existence. There are 11 dimensions that we go through as meditators, and that is the 10th. But anyway, the 7th stage is a completion of the circle. The tree has grown, and now it can bear its fruit of its own. And this is the time to give back to the universe. Almost all surfers who spend their whole lives surfing at this stage only wish to give back what was given to them. They wish to give back to Moana, the ocean. By giving back, you in turn keep growing. This way, when more and more people reach the 7th stage, we can do as Jesus wished and make the whole world just green from one mustard seed. And perhaps this is just poetry, but what if every wave that rolled up on the shore had a soul in it on its way to being reincarnated? And this would describe the intense feeling a surfer has of being of a barreling wave. Like the wave is a vortex in itself, and the feeling you get from being in a barreled wave is totally indescribable. I mean, it's just so breathtaking, so beautiful. The 7th stage is in line with the crown chakra, the highest in our human godly existence. And Buddha called the 7th chakra the 1,000-petaled lotus, or the water lily. Buddha described the 7th chakra like this because now you can flower on the whole of existence. This flower is continually opening, spreading love and compassion for the rest of existence to share. The circle of our soul is now complete. From beginning to end, one thing to remember, Jesus was talking to a Western mind, and the Western mind could only perceive his teachings as they could relate to them. The same held true for Buddha. He spoke to the Eastern mind, and as they could only relate from an Eastern perspective. And now the world is global. Now we have to make religion and talk about religion as if East and West were no longer separate. Now we can talk to the Christian about chakras. Now we can talk to the Buddhist about prayer. One transforms their soul once more, once it's more than 51% of your energy is raised into the 4th chakra, the heart chakra, a sort of death or rebirth appears or happens. The death of the ego, or the shell of the ego, breaks open, and for the first time your eyes are open to the real world. The bridge you and God mended restores your innocence. It is a partnership on both sides. God has compassion even when you are caught up in the currents of the river. And when the shell breaks and the seed is no longer, the river can no longer cause you any suffering. From that point onward, the river feels like your roots, and so you can grow at that moment. So when a person dies with fear in their heart, then their energy returns back to the ocean. Even if the heart is pure, there will be no room for fear. If the heart is full of love, if the heart is pure, it is full of love. And one completes the journey to the second shore while still in this lifetime. Their souls have been ignited with God's essence, and they can now be a light for others to follow. So John Lennon sings to us, he says, "Imagine all the people living life in peace." And I say that John's vision of a brotherhood of man could become a reality when people come to realize two things. First, the barriers that keep us apart are fear and greed. Second, no matter what religion you follow, if that religion has raised enough love or energy to transcend the 4th chakra, the heart chakra, then you will no longer fear death. Now you're on the second shore, and the second innocence, I would like to also add, but you have tasted God and God has tasted you. Enlightenment is known as the ultimate death, and I have read that it is the ultimate death because according to the people who believe in reincarnation, the energy raised into the heart chakra upon enlightenment is then channeled upwards through the remaining 3 chakras. They say the bridge to the lower chakras is broken at that point, or blocked, and the energy can only flow upwards from that moment on. Like gas siphoned from an automobile, once the siphoned gas starts flowing, it defies gravity and the gas flows upwards before it starts its flow downward. From enlightenment onwards, energy flows upwards. The seed has died, now the flower will bloom. And after a common thread between all religions has been realized, a brotherhood could develop. Every person, no matter what religion, should have a common bond, and that bond should be forged with trust. Love is the base metal, and trust is the fire test. Every person alive that has transcended the fourth chakra knows deep down that they are cradled by existence. They know that with an inner feeling that even if they died tomorrow, they could accept it with love and be thankful for the love and life that has been bestowed upon them. And Jesus has said only the pure of heart will enter the kingdom of heaven. And purity is not something imposed or practiced. Purity is your nature when energy draws upwards towards the heart. The more energy that draws into the heart, the more loving you become. People can work on raising energy and activating chakra energy centers, but without centering of the consciousness, the whole effort will be lost. If you have to choose between the two, I would say work on centering your consciousness, living with awareness in all of your day-to-day actions, and being the watcher. Be the one who is witnessing these acts and try to do everything beautifully with compassion, and the energy centers will activate. The tree matures in its own time. Just keep feeding the energy to the right parts. In other words, love is the right fertilizer, and awareness is the right soil. The reason awareness works is because when you are being aware, you are being receptive and not assertive. The mind is assertive, therefore it cannot be receptive. And we have to be open and receptive to receive God. I guess we'll wrap it up about there, folks. Once again, I want to say thank you for joining me. We'll pick up chapter 2, part 4 on the next reading. But I guess a few more things I wanted to say before we wrapped it up was that I guess one day people are going to ask me, where do I stand? I mean, what is my religion, and what is my outlook towards bringing whatever I know or whatever I want to share to other people. And honestly, I want to say that I'm a surfer. First and foremost, that's one of the essences of what I am, and everything seems to revolve beautifully around that. Even God and godliness revolves around my love for the ocean and my love for everyone else that loves the ocean as well, and to share that love with everybody. I have no plans on ever forming a cult or being a cult leader. I mean, come on, people. I'm like I said, I'm just a surfer, and that's my only claim to life is that I may be enlightened, and I have a lot to share with a lot of people. But I mean, I would never fear me or be shied away from me because of what you've read about what happened with Osho or what happened with these people. I mean, Jesus was crucified for being a rebel and for being a little bit outlandish, it seems to happen that way with anybody who speaks up against the normal status quo. But anyway, once again, thank you for joining me. I love talking to you guys, and I hope you enjoy my recordings. I have on YouTube probably 40 plus videos now, podcast formatted, just showing some snapshots of whatever computer, whatever photographs are in my computer. And that's why what you see on the computer seems to be repetitive, but I didn't really make these podcasts to watch. I am playing with my GoPro studio, and I want to put a couple videos out, using actual video footage. And we're heading to Mexico in a couple weeks to go surfing down in Mexico. And a bunch of my friends are coming with us, and maybe I'll get a chance to make some videos of us sharing spirituality while we're down in Mexico. But anyway, we look forward to it. We look forward to seeing you guys or hearing from you sometime. So if you feel free to give me a call, I did do the 1-800 number, but it's 1-877-399-0272. I'm just throwing it out there in case anyone ever feels the need to reach out and get some help or want to share a moment with me, because I'd love to do that with you guys. Anyway, thanks again for joining me. You guys take care. Bye-bye.